so I've been going back and getting the Platinum Trophy on every single game in my PlayStation library. And next up on the list is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. This is the most recent addition into the Ratchet and Clank franchise, and sadly I've never once played any of the previous editions, so I am culturally dry, but your mother is still more dry than me. So today I'm getting the Platinum for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. There is 47 trophies within, and it is honestly one of the easiest Platinum trophies in terms of both length and difficulty, which did indeed make this extremely fun to do. And I'm not joking when I say it might be one of the most fun games I've ever played.
Cap.
I started off with one trophy done because I played it once before. So the game begins with some lore cutscenes about Rivet, who is the other protagonist in the game aside from Ratchet and Clank. She is in this dimension or planet where the main game's villain is also, and he is hunting her down with all of his robot minions. Eventually she does a face reveal, and it went a lot better than dreams. And we then got a neat little transition over to Ratchet. This is where the game really begins and we get to play for the first time. Ratchet and Clank are getting a big celebration because they have saved the universe or something a lot of times. Sadly, the party is basically ruined when a ton of enemies and Nefarious himself show up to the party. Nefarious is the game's main villain and is honestly a super funny character because he is just like absolutely awful at ever winning in anything ever in this game. So the rest of this intro just contains a lot of tutorialness things. We get to rail grind for the first time, use the grapple hook contraption, and even got to use anti-gravity boots. After a bit of combat, we end up quote-unquote safe, and Clank gives Ratchet a present which turns out to be the world's worst gift ever. It is a dimensional travel gun that allows for the user to travel between dimensions. Now that I think about it, maybe AIDS is a worse gift. Anyways, the gun is super powerful and Nefarious shows up to steal it. We have a giant boss fight with him which was super fun, but then everything sort of goes to hell and we just get launched through numerous different dimensions and break every single rule that Albert made up out of his brain. This happens until we crash onto the same planet that Rivet was on, and the dimension gun also like blows up and causes a lot of trouble within the Rift worlds. Also, Ratchet got sent somewhere completely different from Clank, and that hoe Rivet just takes Clank for herself. I knew all girls were the same. Anyways, we now got to play as Ratchet and begin the open world aspect of the game, which is actually really good because the maps are super easy to understand and tell where you are. This is something I wish more games had. Nonetheless, while I was exploring and heading to the first objective, I found a bear collectible which gave me a trophy. And you also need to get all of them for a collectible trophy much later on. I also entered a rift split right next to me, which usually just contain cosmetic items in them, but I got a trophy for entering my first one of the day. And while in the rift split, I jumped on this big ol' inflatable guy a few times and another trophy popped. Honestly, I don't even know why this one did, but then again, I'm mentally ill, so I don't know what's happening half the time anyway. And again, on the same rift split, I found the cosmetic item at the end of it, which gave me a suit appearance and another trophy. And then I went to change my look a tad bit since being a furry is hard work, and another trophy popped. This is a large amount of trophies in such a short span of time that I nearly busted a fat nut. So anyways, I then did the actual objective of the game, which was to head to Club Nefarious and find a rebel informant or something like that. We found the guy, but right when we did, a bunch of enemies came in to take us out because being a furry is illegal in this universe. I might need to move there. We then had to follow the Phantom, which is what the rebel dude is called. And while I was doing this, we just had a ton of combat, and the combat in this game is super easy and also a lot of fun. In fact, it was so much fun, I almost forgot that both Black Ops 3 and Wolfenstein 2 are on my trophy list. And I have to do them at some point. Oh my god! Anyways, we caught up to the Phantom and he touched us non-consensually, which is very bad. But we did get the ability to phase through these locked areas though, so I'll let it slide this time. This was a big help because now we can traverse to locked out areas that we couldn't before, obviously. We then went on a little journey with our Phantom friend and did lots of illegal executions of the robot species. Eventually he dipped on us and let us go on our own for a few moments, and after that I got jumped by a huge robot boss which took us across space and time. Thankfully my furry nuts are giant and I took care of this spot easily. Ratchet's next objective was to go confront Nefarious, so we did just that. And we had a funny interaction where we were about to smash his head in, but got distracted for a moment because it is November. But after refocusing our efforts, he knocked Nefarious's head so hard, he might have a chromosome or two loose now. Ratchet then ran all the way to the ship bay and stole Nefarious's ship, and after giving the secret password, which was big black balls, we jetted out of there so fast we turned into a woman. So now we play as Rivet, and this is sort of the way the game swaps between characters. Each has planets that only they can go to. So that's kind of racist to planets, but it's whatever, I guess. Anyways, this planet is the one Rivet primarily resides in, so we just went to talk to her friends who are the Morts. And they all look the same, but somehow Rivet can tell they're different. Woman, man, I swear to God.
That's what I'm saying.
Also, she needed her ship fixed, and apparently they got that covered for her. We also had to close this rift split for the Morts, and got a minigame with Clank, which has a ton of puzzles. At the start, these aren't that bad, but they progressively get harder throughout the game. After I did the first one and closed the rift, we then got a trophy. I then continued on with Rivet's story, which had us basically just get rid of all the nefarious enemies on the planet, so we could reach her hideout. And while fighting fighting, I got a combat trophy also. We then made it to her hideout after fighting some more enemies, and here Rivet found out a lot about Ratchet and Clank through Clank's memories and his recorded moments apparently. After leaving the hideout, Rivet wandered too close to the hood and got jumped by the Seekerpede, which is a very lame name, almost as lame as naming your son Sean. So like usual, we got a crispy boss fight with this creation which looks straight out of the Horizon games. But after fighting it for a while, we got a cutscene in which Rivet notices it's being driven and not acting on its own. So she runs up to the pilot and decapitates him, giving us a trophy. Maybe women aren't all bad after all. I then went to the shop lady in this game where you can buy guns and gun upgrades, and I fully upgraded one of my weapons for a trophy. Rivet and Clank then went to another planet, and the objective was to look for Zerky in the gastropub. And while there, Rivet got both hit on by this pirate guy and also challenged him to a fight. We then got introduced to the battle arena, which is where you can do waves upon waves of fights in this game, and you get multiple trophies in here for completing them. I got my first one after beating the pirate guy's minions. I then kept on playing these, and I got to this race one, which was a bit different than the other waves of enemies, because obviously there was no fighting in it. But I completed the race and got a trophy, so I won't complain. Anyways, we were back to playing as Ratchet again, and we went to this new planet. While there, we fought a lot of enemies like usual, and I got another combat trophy for using the ricochet gun. The whole objective for this planet is to find the archives so we can find out what's in them as you do. We also ended up meeting this tiny little yellow robot named Kit, who became Ratchet's new partner since Clank has gone to the dark side of the woman. We reached the archives, we had to do a ton of parkour to climb this mountain, and I ended up actually going too fast while doing this and got a trophy, but also fell to my death, so yeah, that's kind of awkward. Before we reached the top of the mountain, however, I went back and did another quest, and there was a huge battle in which I used this weapon that was literally just a sprinkler on the ground, but it froze enemies and turned them into plants for a little bit of time. Now, I have no clue how that works, but I got a trophy for using it. I then actually decided to climb the mountain, which had a ton of parkour like I said, and funnily enough, the archive isn't atop the mountain at all. We literally just climbed it so we could launch off of the mountain onto the archive, which is atop this walking machine. Once we made it to the archive though, we got the trophy for getting to it. Ratchet then looked through some of the archive, but got cock-blocked because more enemies decided to show up. And remember that little yellow robot that was our new friend or whatever? Yeah, the thing can also transform more than Optimus Prime himself.
My name is Optimus Prime.
And turns into a giant killing machine. But I guess the head growth DLC isn't included quite yet. Also, the yellow robot Kit tried to kill Ratchet, but his prayers went through and he was saved. Right after that, I went back to the gun shop and purchased some more weapons and ended up getting a full rack of weapons for the full rack trophy. Now that's cool, but I've seen a better rack on your mom, I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, yo!
And next we got to play as Rivet again, and I was on another different planet once more. While there, I did a side quest on it which had us help this cook or something kill enemies and have them get collected into this machine. Honestly, kind of pointless. But the lady did give me a trophy once we finished. And she also gave me my first spy bot, which is another collectible in this game's trophy list. And I got the initial trophy for getting my first one. Anyways, the entire purpose of this planet was to find some purple crystal thing that was apparently super important. So much so that we dropped it once we got it and it broke. But we got a trophy because it was so important. Must be nice. After that, Nefarious gave us a homemade video to watch, and he said if you drop a like and subscribe to Its Ilusion right now, you will gain massive amounts of his totally not fake money right here. So you definitely should. We then played as Ratchet and are on a planet that has a forge we needed to access so we could forge the Dimensionator. Right away after getting there, I also found my 5th golden bolt for a trophy. So basically this entire planet just consisted of us traveling back and forth between dimensions of the same area, which in one it's destroyed and in the other it's not. It had some pretty neat puzzles here and there, and was also just a vibe in general. But at the end we fought a bunch of enemies with the help of these 2 giant creatures who were actually powering the forge because they simply got that dog in them. I also smashed the last purple crystal right here and got a trophy for it, which was honestly pretty hard to do since these are hidden very well. And we then powered up the forge and got the Dimensionator back all over again, and a trophy. But where did you put that Dimensionator, Ratchet, huh? Where could you possibly put it? Where would it fit? Disgusting. Rivet's mission was next, and we went to this planet that had the Fixer on it, which is this giant robot who can fix anything by simply looking at it and laser beaming it with his purpleness. So he fixed our purple crystal for us, and then we got a trophy. Next, the whole gang finally got together and we had a super awkward meeting with each other, which is exactly what it was like when I dated some girl in middle school. Just god-awful. But it was saved because a few moments later we got to have a boss fight with that lanky fella Nefarious, and I used the Mr. Fungi weapon on him, which unlocked me another trophy. We then beat Nefarious and got a huge round of applause from the crowd that was watching us fight him. Sadly, the real Emperor Nefarious showed up, and you can tell the two apart because one is like 7 foot tall and the other is a solid 5'5". And they're red and green also. That's quite a it's a small difference. Anyways, there wasn't any more fighting with them and they just dipped out on us. I then decided to do some cleanup trophies because I was afraid the game was going to end soon and I was unsure about how the post story would look. So I went and farmed a combat trophy in the same place we were just in, which had me melee enemies with the ice weapon. I then changed the song on the jukebox in the bar 3 times and got another combat trophy while I was using grenades. trophies. So back to the main story. Emperor Nefarious went to Rivet's home planet to destroy it because I don't think he likes us very much. Anyways, he was no match because somehow I got a literal dragon on my side and used it to blow up all of his ships and save the day once more, giving another trophy. We then played as Ratchet again, and I've realized making this video that these two characters got swapped around so damn much, it reminds me of what happened to your sister in college. But Ratchet's mission was to find this captain guy and warn him that Nefarious was coming after him. And speak of the devil, there he is, right there. We also got ran up on by a bunch of enemies, and we obviously had to rid them of life force and escape, which we almost did, but then Emperor Nefarious showed up at the last moment and sunk the ship right into a rift. Thankfully, we got thrown like a football to safety and got another trophy. Much later, Emperor Nefarious did end up capturing Ratchet and Clank, however, which was super sad. But even worse, Kit, who was now Rivet's partner, was actually the robot that ate Rivet's arm. So they had a fallout, and not the fourth kind. Now Rivet is all alone, and we got a trophy to keep her company whilst in that state of mind. So the objective now is to free Ratchet and Clank from prison and essentially just save the day in general. Hashtag girl power. So we did just that and fought our way through the prison they were in until we caught up to the transport and saved the day, woman version. Kit and Rivet then had another fallout again, and it was bad this time. Ratchet and Clank didn't understand what was happening though, since they don't know woman emotions. Same here, bro. Same here. But we did get a trophy. And then we actually reached the final mission, and shout out game for telling us it was the end of the story. So it's cleanup time before the ending now. Yes, I cannot wait. Oh my god. I began the cleanup by doing collectibles because those were just so much fun, and this game thankfully only had a few. So I did the first initial one and then went to go farm some combat trophies. I only managed to get a few here, however, because I was under-leveled on some guns which needed to be maxed for the trophies. So I went back to finish all the collectibles instead, and I also did quite a few of the easy miscellaneous trophies as well. I sort of went a little bit crazy here because some of these were in very annoying places on the map, and I didn't always know how to get to them. And thankfully, the trophies for miscellaneous things were like literally the easiest I've ever seen in the game, and most took me like a minute to do. So my final trophy before the ending and the New Game Plus trophies was to just shoot back and kill 10 enemies with a shield weapon. And Lord have mercy, this was so stupid. Mostly because you have to directly kill the enemy with a bullet you stop, and not with the weapon's normal shockwave, which means you need to be positioned far away from the enemy and get lucky if the enemy is just sitting still when you shoot at them. I did it eventually, however, and got the trophy. So now all we have left is to finish the final mission, get the ending trophy, and then hop into the New Game Plus to collect the 2 more weapons and fully finish our arsenal of mass destruction. The ending mission has you pretty much just fight the entire time, which is honestly sick. You go through multiple waves of enemies until actually fighting Emperor Nefarious. And this boss fight is considerably hard because he doesn't take a ton of damage from your weapons, and it took me quite a while to get him down to 0 HP. But right before I was about to on my first try, I slipped off the side of the platform I was on and died from fall damage, forcing me to essentially reset the whole fight all over again. Now that broke my heart, so I decided to enter the Emperor's heart chamber and completely blow up his, which didn't even end the fight, and we had to do another boss fight right after. This one, however, was the final one, and it ended with Kit and Rivet making up, and then Kit yeeting us over to Nefarious and smacking him in the head with our hammer all over again. Now that finally took him out, and then the game basically ended, giving us the ending trophy after some story polishing cutscenes. Now the only trophy left is to go back into New Game Plus and play the intro until we reach our first chance to go to the gun shop, because inside the glorious gun shop has 2 new weapons for the small price of 1 scrap or penny or whatever the currency is. I honestly forgot already, but I bought both of them and got the trophy, and then the platinum pop right after. So that was the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart's platinum trophy. I had a super fun time on this game, and honestly, I can look at furries now without resenting them.